Very big news yesterday coming in the way of Kalshi. The feds have arrested a special forces agent who profited from using Kalshi. Get this, ABC News is reporting that they've arrested a special forces soldier who was involved in the capture of Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela, who made $400,000 on Polymarket. The soldier placed bets on the removal of Venezuela just hours before his capture, so obviously he knew something was happening, and that's ended up what happening and made money there. But naturally, this is what's going on in the world of prediction markets and sports betting. But again, with some of this being legalized, it's important to note that if it wasn't, we may not have ever had this happen or find out. So stay tuned. A story to continue. All right, day one of the NFL draft officially in the books. Here it is, the first round of the NFL draft. Some trading definitely prominent. Some surprises definitely happened. But the good news is that number one overall pick did indeed go to Fernando Mendoza. What a nice young kid who is the number one overall pick in the 2026 draft. He will play for the Las Vegas Raiders next season. They have not said whether or not he will start the first game of the season for the Raiders, but he will be a big part of their franchise and their future moving forward. So then things got interesting. Of course, the number 3 overall pick, we'd heard so much about Arizona potentially trading out of that selection. They did not. They took Jeremiah Love with the 3rd overall pick. Of course, he will be the cornerstone of this Arizona offense moving forward. And for fantasy football purposes, probably a first-round pick coming next year out of Notre Dame. His teammate, Shadavian Price, was drafted by the Seattle Seahawks with the final pick in the first round. Maybe the biggest surprise of all is the future is now, I guess, for the Los Angeles Rams. They decided, shockingly, to take Ty Simpson when they have Hall of Fame quarterback Matthew Stafford. So this builds for the future, and they used a really high pick, too, 13th overall out of the University of Alabama. We'll hear from their general manager, Les Snead, and maybe not as much from their head coach, Sean McVay, who is making the rounds on the internet today for, I guess, what he didn't say about drafting Ty Simpson, who will sit behind Stafford for at least this season. Meanwhile, Mackay Lemon ended up being drafted a little bit later than most people thought. His total was around 14-15. Highly unusual to hear a player get a phone call from a team he thinks he's being drafted to and ends up somewhere else, but that's what happened. He ended up going to the Philadelphia Eagles, and it would absolutely appear at this point that the Eagles will trade A.J. Brown sooner, if not later. Lemon and Devontae Smith will be the wide receivers for the Eagles this season. And, of course, day 2 will come up later, and on Monday we'll recap the entire draft for you. Now let's get to the NBA last night. As suspected, the Atlanta Hawks are in it to win it. They now lead the series against the New York Knicks, 109-108 the final yesterday. Jalen Johnson, 24, 10, and 8. C.J. McCollum had 23 points as well. The Knicks once again went cold in the end, and Quinn Snyder is feeling it right now, having his team at home with a chance to go up 3-1 this weekend. Here's Snyder after the game.
We guarded multiple actions and helped each other too, and didn't foul. That was a huge part of it. I thought, Onyeka showed his hands. J.K. pursued. Dyson, got knocked down and got back up, and I think, was shifted and really made it congested in the lane. So a lot of good things happened on the possession from, it's one of those kind of all 5 guys.
Yeah, the reality of it is, and I told them this, it's a 7-game series for a reason. Stuff's going to happen. There are plenty of teams have been down 1-2. I even think Oklahoma City was down 1-2 last year, and they end up winning it. So I'm not saying we're going to win it or anything like that, but the reality of it is it's 7 games, and you take one game at a time. Each game is its own entity, and that's what I told the group. Now, this should sting because we gave ourselves a chance knowing that we didn't play our best basketball. So it should sting, but we need to feel it and get ready to be locked in for the next game, which we will be.
See about that, says Mike Brown. Okay, home cooking for the Timberwolves, big time yesterday, 113-96. How about that? Not even a close game. Jaden McDaniels, 20, Anthony Edwards, 17. Nikola Jokic had his own great game, as he always does, 27 and 15, but not nearly enough. Under 100 points for Denver. How about that? Chris Finch, the head coach of Minnesota, said the defense set the tone. That was the key.
Collectively, defensively, right from the start there.
Yeah, locked in, into the ball. Everybody kind of went in the battle that was right in front of them. It was really big. challenging everything, just making everything hard, all the way around, and came out and just set the tone, which is what we wanted to do here at home. So
Had a hard time making shots tonight. And I think, we talked about it after the game. Our physicality offensively has got to get better. I thought our physicality defensively in the second half was much better. I went small. I tried to put a shooting lineup out there, and that led to what we knew could happen, the size issue. I mean, it's just the way it is. They got to the paint, and then if you double that with transition, that's just, you're going to put yourself in a tough spot, not to mention only 39 points at the half. So I did think throughout the second half we found some things defensively, but offensively we got to screen better, we got to cut better, we got to handle the pressure much better than we did tonight.
All right. Also, 2-1 lead now for the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Raptors beat them at home, 126-104. The Raptors said they needed to get big performances from their main players, Scottie Barnes, R.J. Barrett. Well, get this, 33 points apiece. That will get it done. Game 4 Sunday in Toronto. But, of course, the Raptors felt they needed to get that win. Here's Scottie Barnes after saying, yes, sir.
Scottie, do you guys feel like you needed? Do you feel like you needed a win like this just for your team's confidence kind of going forward in this series to kind of get back in it?
We need every game. This is the playoffs. Everybody wants to win. We want to win every single game. We don't want to take a game off. 2-0, come back to our home crowd. It was very energetic in there today, but we know we needed a win.
Donovan, just what's your major takeaway from this one? What you guys got to do better?
It's our aggressiveness, our force, I don't think was there tonight as a whole. Give credit where credit's due. We knew it was going to be a tough game. No team wants to go down 3-0. We were right there for the majority of the game, and then battle kind of got away in the fourth. So just things we can control. We give them credit. They protected home court.
NBA action, of course, continues tonight. So does Major League Baseball action, and that will include the Philadelphia Phillies, who are going through it right now. Talk about two different teams in two different directions. Cubs are on a roll. Phillies can't win. The Cubs win 8-7, and Philadelphia has now lost 9 games in a row. Seiya Suzuki homered for the Cubs for the 3rd straight game. Kyle Schwarber says afterwards, it's time to get things straight.
That's the way that we should go about our day every single day, where, you know what, we give up some runs, whatever it was, and we were able to respond, keep fighting back, and then kept extending it into extra innings. That's the way I think that we play baseball. I think that's a good representation, right? It ends in a loss, right? It wouldn't be that big of a moment there if we're not on this stretch. I feel like that's probably our brand of baseball right there, and that's the way that we should keep playing, right? Like I said, guys are going to be grinding, guys are figuring out, but felt like we kept energy today. We kept fighting through it. We found a way through. We broke through, kept pressure on guys, took advantage of some situations that went our way, and obviously we don't end up with a win, but I feel like if we keep playing more baseball like that we're going to get a lot more good results moving forward.
All right, welcome back to Newswire on SportsGrid. A familiar face makes his return to Newswire from Legal Sports Report. You would have to be a very big fan of this show and be watching this show about, I'm going to say, a year and a half, 2 years probably it's been. It feels like longer than a year for sure since we've had Pat Evans back with us. How long has it been?
I feel you there, Craig, because I missed you. I missed Newswire. I missed SportsGrid. It's only been, I think, about 8 or 9 months, but it feels like forever. I think the last time was last July. Pat. I know. But hey, I'm back. I should be back now more regularly. So, hey.
Good.
But thanks for having me back, and I'm excited to be back.
Michigan State football, that's Pat's thing, and also, working at Legal Sports Report. So you guys, whoever's out there watching, what you need to do is support Pat and his team over at LegalSportsReport.com. They do a great job over there breaking down sports betting and prediction markets. Pat and I haven't had a chance to chat about that. I'm sure we will. So let's get started. Let's start off with Oklahoma and a sports betting bill that looked like it was on the move forward. And now we're going the other way. It looks like it's been rejected. And part of this, Pat, with the remaining states that have not yet legalized sports, I would say at least half of them are going to have to get things done with the tribal entities, it does feel like.
Exactly. We did see Wisconsin get that over the finish line this year with their tribal agreement. So that's, one more state to go. And here we are. But yes, Oklahoma, this is something we've been talking about. I remember talking about it with you last year at some point, that they've been working on this for a really long time. There's two guys, Senator, now I can't remember his name, of course, and then Ken Luttrell, Representative Ken Luttrell, who's kind of the real big leader. He's been working on it for 8 years. They've been working on it, and it kind of fizzled out early this session, and then all of a sudden news emerged late last week that, hey, a deal might be in place. And that's big news, because Governor Kevin Stitt has been a thorn in the side of the tribes and legislature trying to get this done. Back in 2020, he tried to legalize through 2 tribal compacts sports betting. And the rest of the tribe said, nope, we don't like that. The courts rejected it. And since then, Stitt's been, nope, we're not going to do tribal exclusive sports betting, which is an issue because tribes have gaming exclusivity in Oklahoma. And he's wanted an open market and has vowed to veto any tribal exclusive bill. So that's been the thing. We've had bills get to the Senate floor before, and he said, no, we're going to veto it, so they don't pass it. This year, again, it was actually last year, a bill made it through the House, Luttrell's bill, made it to the Senate floor where it's been sitting. And we had a final bill deal kind of come out that the Oklahoma Indian Gaming Association was very into. Apparently the Oklahoma Thunder, who have been pulled into the discussions here and then, maybe for a license, maybe to share licenses with the tribes, maybe just get a cut of the revenue. They were into it because 8% of the sports betting revenue sent to the state as part of the exclusivity fee would help promote globally the Oklahoma City Thunder. But what it came down to, they pulled it up on Wednesday. The Senate voted against it because they knew Stitt wasn't going to go for it. Now, the promising thing for Oklahoma is you've got this legislature that seems to be fairly behind sports betting and legalizing it for the tribes. Stitt is term limited out this year, so you will have a new governor in Oklahoma next year. So this will be a state to watch, because there are a lot of tribes in Oklahoma saying, we want this. FanDuel came out as this was coming and said, we want the chance to partner with at least one of the tribes to offer sports betting in Oklahoma. So long story short, we've had at least a 6-7 year path that's been just really up and down, and Stitt has been the major reason it hasn't gotten done, and he's out of the way next year. So Oklahoma will definitely be a state to watch.
Okay, fair enough. Now let's get to Colorado, where, like a lot of other states, some states are trying to push legislation through which would ban prop bets, but it seemingly is not happening, Pat, virtually anywhere. And this is with all of the stuff that's surrounded sports betting over the last year or so. It just feels like these states know how much money comes in from them. They're not willing to take them off the options.
Exactly. And, part of the reason a lot of states legalized sports betting was because of the potential revenue it could help bring in tax-wise. And that is, of course, as we're facing bigger and bigger state budget deficits. So all the money is welcome. Well, in Colorado, you have this bill kind of putting up more guardrails to make it better for consumers, which you're seeing a lot across the country. And this bill did advance out of a committee. It makes it so that sportsbooks can't limit bettors, but they can't use credit cards to fund their accounts. They can't make more than 5 deposits in 24 hours. They can't advertise, sportsbooks can't advertise during games, things like that. But this committee went ahead and stripped the prop bet ban out of it because of what you're saying. The budget deficit in Colorado is very high. Now, what makes Colorado interesting is almost all of the sports betting tax revenue in Colorado goes to water projects, which, if you know anything about Colorado and the Rockies, water is very important in that state. So what they realized was the prop bets are a big driver of revenue. And if you take that out, more money would have to come from the general fund of the state, which is already very short. So they said, you know what, let's take this out. Maybe we can consider this again in the future. What's interesting is how kind of conservative they were in their estimates of revenue that they were getting from it. They said it would be about $2.4 million, actually 1.8 if you subtract what they were guessing from the component of banning credit card funding. But when Louisiana tried to do this earlier this year, they had a much bigger, and they are very similar markets for the most part, they had a much bigger projection of $28.9 million per year. So that's a huge discrepancy. And if Colorado would have went ahead and slipped this through, that could have been a huge detriment to that budget deficit that they're facing. And plus, prop bets are a huge part of the sports betting ecosystem. And if you ban those, who knows where customers might go to find them elsewhere. So that is, of course, what you're doing. This bill hits the Senate floor likely today, and we'll see a third vote. And maybe we'll have an update on whether or not this guardrail bill really fully passes the Senate this year or not next week.
All right, Pat, let's wrap it up with this story. And this is the one that I find the most curious here. Kalshi has banned 3 political candidates for trading on their own elections, but that's not the story. The story, at least, is that a couple of the political candidates have claimed that they did this on purpose to show everyone that you shouldn't be able to do this. And so do you buy that? Do you think that that's what happened here? And by doing this, will this make a statement towards some of the prediction markets? They're obviously not in favor of prediction markets. That's why they claim they did it, right?
Oh, right. There's all sorts of nuances to the story, far more than we have time for today, and maybe we can get into it more next week. But yeah, part of it was Kalshi wanted to kind of enforce some of these insider integrity trading kind of policies that more and more people are saying, wait, this doesn't seem right about prediction markets. And of course, the CFTC, which regulates it federally, has come out and said we need more internal guardrails. These platforms need to enforce this, and this is them doing that. What's kind of funny is it does not seem like any of these politicians did very much trading, but that was on themselves, on races and on them that they are involved in. And the one that I found really interesting was Matt Klein, a state senator from Minnesota who's running for a state or a U.S. House seat, bet on himself in his House race. What's really interesting about that is he is a sponsor at the state level to ban prediction markets in Minnesota. And I did this story for DeFi Rate, which is a kind of a similar site to LSR. And I'm doing a lot of fun election prediction market coverages about Senate races and things like that. So definitely check that site out if you have some time. But that was really interesting to me that Matt Klein went ahead and did that. He and Ezekiel Enriquez, a representative candidate from Texas, both settled for very small fines and a 5-year suspension from Kalshi. Meanwhile, Mark Marone, the one kind of you're really talking about, who came out and said, I did this on purpose. I wanted to get caught and whatever. He has not settled. A bigger fine, $6,000 some dollars, and the 5-year fine. And maybe we'll see more and more whether or not that was truly on purpose in the future, if he's just kind of saying, well, maybe I made a mistake, but I'm not going to admit it.
See, Pat, it is fantastic to have you back in the fold here, and we look forward to catching up with you again next week here on Newswire. And welcome back to the show. It's great to see you again. Have a good weekend.
Thanks as always, Craig.